Hello and welcome to my TERA first impression video. Now I spent the weekend in TERA's beta event and did a lot of recording in order to bring you a variety of scenery and action from the game. Now, this game is really a lot of fun, but it also has some unfortunate and significant problems. Of course, the first impression of any game starts with the character creator. Right away I couldn't help but notice the boobs. Yes, unless you want to play the now infamous Ellen race, your female characters will have boobs that defy physics. Now, I think this type of character design is probably a turn-off for a lot of serious gamers. And this kind of reminds me, if you're a parent and you're not okay with nudity, this may not be the game for your kids. Female characters often wear very, very little, and there will be statues and such that you'll probably find rather inappropriate. Now, as for the rest of the creator, you'll choose from a handful of races, and you can take any class you want regardless of your race. You get your typical sliders for nose size or horn type or whatever, and you can reshape your face, which is a good thing, but you can reshape it into very odd proportions, which is not such a good thing. So to me, overall, the character generator is rather typical, and beyond that, players that are looking to roleplay will be very disappointed with clothing options. For the most part, you'll be wearing the same clothes with different colors throughout this game, so if character aesthetics are important to you, make sure that you like both the look of your character and the clothes they're wearing before you begin. Now, upon entering the game, I noticed that there is only one starting world. Personally, I could care less, but I know that for a lot of people this could be a deal breaker right off the bat. The next thing I noticed was that the graphics look really good, but I felt like this game had been advertising really high-end graphics, and I didn't see anything overly special here. I really like the overall look of the game. The graphics find a nice line between realism and gamey sort of fantasy. It's a very colorful game with a lot of zone variety and detail, but combat animations are rather uninspired for the most part, and as for sound, there's a decent variety of good music, but sound effects are very typical, and at times I find them a bit annoying, actually. So overall, the TERA team has given us nothing new in terms of their graphics or sound, but they clearly have some amazing artists who understand how to create great eye candy. Now, I also noticed right away how large the starting zone is, a trend that continues throughout this game. The game boasts an impressive amount of zones on 2 different continents, although they probably tend to be a little more path-driven and not as open as some would like. So for most of the weekend, I played with my friend Eric because I knew that TERA is all about combat tactics, and I figured it was better to not play this game solo. So we strategically picked a tank, the Lancer, and a high DPS character, the Sorcerer, and did what you do in most games, grab some quests. Now, most of the quests in TERA are very typical. You talk to this guy, you kill 10 of those, and you bring back 10 fangs. At the lower levels, you'll be doing story quests and zone quests. Now, one thing Eric and I found out the hard way is that story quests are crucial to the game, and this is actually a serious weakness. When you come to the end of your zone, your story quest chain leads you to an instanced group quest. We weren't able to find a group in the starting area, largely since the game does not give access to the looking for group tool at low levels, so we decided to skip it and go to the mainland. Now, the problem is this: you can't get a new story quest until you've completed the one before it. Story quests are also your breadcrumb quests that tell you where to go, so if you don't complete one, you can get very lost. Now, this is a huge problem throughout this game. You need to do the dungeons to move forward in your progression, but if you don't find a team for those, you're completely out of luck. And by the way, the looking for group tool is a nice tool, but it's not an automatic put the group together like WoW, so even with the looking for group tool, you can still not find a team to complete your quests. Now, story quests also have a tendency to send you back and forth across areas that you've already completed and have no other reason to return to. So the story, which you have to do, was not designed with any type of practical progression in mind. It's just an excuse to have you randomly wandering across enormous zones while you grind away and level up. Now, on the bright side, the game does give you a mount at level 11, which outruns everything, so at least you don't need to fight your way to the quest objectives if you don't want to. Now, what I liked about the quest system is that there are far more zone quests than you'll ever need to do to level. And this makes me very happy because I like choices, and I like to feel like I'm deciding when it's time to move on or when I'd rather stay in a zone for a while, rather than feeling like the game always chooses for me. So I don't think you'll probably mind the quest system too much if you are okay with theme park, World of Warcraft style questing, and if you remember to always be completing your story quests as your first priority. Of course, finding a team at the end of a zone may be a real problem, but probably more so for those who begin their journey in TERA a year from now, rather than at launch. So TERA is hanging its financial hopes and dreams on the combat system. What's advertised is a more intuitive, faster-paced combat style from other games where you'll need strategy and a lot of movement. Now, as I began gaining more powers through leveling, it seemed to me that TERA is delivering on a more exciting combat style. Like most MMOs, you use the WASD keys for movement, but unlike most MMOs, you are not using your mouse for clicking on a target. In fact, you don't have a mouse pointer at all unless you're accessing your menus. Instead, you have your cursor in the center of your screen and your mouse will turn you. You can slot your mouse buttons with powers, so your left mouse button will activate one and your right mouse button will activate another. And initially, your left mouse button will be set to your basic attack, so you can actually just hold it down to spam that power. The controls are actually very similar to a first-person shooter. You will be using aim targeting, something that I found very easy to adjust to while making everything a bit more exciting. You can also use a controller, although I never actually tried it to see how effective it is. So Eric and I played our roles throughout, him tanking, me napalming down our foes, and for the most part we played very much like we would in any other game. I did eventually play for a couple of hours by myself though, and things got a lot more interesting. As a sorcerer and without my tanking comrade, I quickly learned to avoid taking hits, a necessity of survival if you're soloing in TERA. Of course, I also learned that this can be very dangerous because things in TERA respawn outrageously fast. As much as possible, you want to know what's behind you before you jump there. Combat is definitely the reason that a lot of players will likely get hooked on TERA. One thing that really surprised me, though, while I was soloing, is how much more XP every kill is worth when you're soloing as opposed to teaming. Now, XP's almost cut in half if you're working with a partner. So it seems a little odd to me that a game that requires you to team up frequently will then give you such a stiff XP penalty for doing so in the open world. Now, as is usually the case when I'm learning a game, I didn't really do anything with crafting. What I did learn is that you can gather ores or plants or whatever without having to learn a skill, which ought to give your character a lot more crafting options. Recipes are abundant, whether you get them from drops or buy them from merchants, so it appears that there's a ton of crafting in this game, although it also appears to be pretty typical on its surface. The expectation for TERA is that the PvP will be amazing. Now maybe it will, but you won't know it until you've committed a lot of time. If I'm not mistaken, you don't get access to any type of battleground or anything until level 58. There is no faction warfare. And my understanding is that the political system will encourage PvP, but we haven't seen that yet. You can play PvP on a PvP server if you like to gank or be ganked, but there's no looting, and the game actually discourages ganking by penalizing you if you attack someone and then lose. So the developers have made it clear both in what they've said in interviews as well as through the game design that PvP is not the major focus of TERA. So if you're hoping for a fantastic PvP environment, you may want to look elsewhere. Now, everyone who plays TERA, without exception, says that the level you must reach before you start seeing what this game is all about is level 20. So this weekend, my time was limited, but I told Eric right up front, no matter what, we've got to get to 20. I can't do a video if I don't get to 20. So a few hours before the beta ended, I reached level 20, and Eric had actually managed this feat a few hours before me. To my great disappointment, there were no new kinds of quests, no new PvP, and I didn't get any new earth-shattering abilities. We couldn't figure out what was so different about 20 at all, so finally I just asked an area chat in the capital city, well, what changes so much after 20? The answer was pretty simple. You get glyphs, and more areas where you have to team. Now, glyphs were not going to be something that we could learn about because we had just hit 20. Now, I do know that they are a way to modify your powers, but that's about all I can tell you. But we figured we ought to go check out the cool level 20 teaming areas. So we fought some guys who were a couple of levels higher than us, thinking it would be tough, but it wasn't. In fact, we could only find a handful of small areas that looked to require a team at all, so my only assumption is that there are a lot more instances, although to be honest, we didn't really come across very many of those either. So in my opinion, really not a lot changes about this game after 20. So Eric and I had a couple of hours left, no team to complete our story quests, and nothing really to accomplish, so we just decided to go exploring anywhere we could, which is what I'll be showing you for the rest of the video. Now overall, my impression of TERA is this. It's a fun game, but neither Eric nor I are planning to buy it at this time. I'm actually really surprised TERA will be charging a box price plus a subscription because I think this game, with a reasonable item mall or maybe a pay-for-content model like Turbine has, could take the F2P market by storm. But there are some significant problems with the game. It hinges on combat, but doesn't give new players any opportunity for meaningful PvP. The quest system has some serious issues. It doesn't seem to know whether it wants to be a solo game or a team game. I really don't know what to say about the instances. Maybe they're great, maybe they're typical, not sure because I couldn't find a team. And finally, it lacks some obvious details like a variety in outfits, and some of the finer details you'd expect from a game you'd pay for, like footprints in the sand where you've walked, or splashing in the water when you're walking there, or weather cycles, all of which are non-existent in this game. So if TERA looks like fun to you, I'd say go ahead and pick it up because it really is fun. Just be aware that this game is not the second coming of Pac-Man. Now as for me, I'm going to keep playing Rift, Dungeons & Dragons Online, and World of Warcraft, and I'll be trying a lot of free-to-play titles that I haven't gotten to check out yet, and I'm looking forward to the launches of The Secret World and Guild Wars 2. All of which are factors that are putting TERA on the list of games I won't be playing going forward. And that's it for my TERA First Impression. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.